Hello, welcome. I am Rolling Stag, and I love hacking. I love sci-fi. I love things in outer space. I love present day put into the future to see how we would deal with our present situation if even more technology were thrown into it. So that's why I wanted to tell you about this Kickstarter coming up. They actually reached out to me, so this isn't a really sponsored thing, even though it says that this is a sponsored video. The quick start is $0, but they gave it to me early. So just to cover my butt, I'm saying, yes, this is a paid endorsement, but it's not. No money has changed hands as of the time that we are recording this video or anything. They just sent it over because they were like, I think based on your channel, you might dig this. And spoiler alert, I do. So I want to show you kind of what's in the quick start and what the resolution mechanic is in some of the settings stuff. And then there's kind of one thing that I was like, that's a weird choice. So we'll talk about what that is. But overall, not burying the lead, I like it. I'm excited to see this come alive. So use the link to see if it's still live or live yet when you're watching this. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get into the screen share. Here we are looking at the PDF, and I made some highlights of details that I wanted to make sure that I go over. And it's a pretty cool quick start. It's about, what, 70 pages long, and I figure we'll just kind of go straight through it. I'm not going to show you everything. I don't want this to be a comprehensive expose of the whole quick start, but I figured we'll take a look at it, which the cover is pretty kick-ass. I like that. Um, Super cool detail is this astronaut has the airlock open, waving to their buddy coming in. Their two friends coming in, but their left hand is all skinned and bloody, and that's really cool. And you can see some short circuiting going on right here. So the front page tells you right from the beginning exactly what you're getting into, which is neat. And again, this is the quick start. This is not a comprehensive rule system. It's enough to get you going. And the first thing that I noticed is the top-notch production quality. Like, I am a sucker for making it look like the world that you're playing in. So I love that this is a sci-fi space thing, and you got all sorts of kind of mechanical elements here, and that 45-degree angle interface thing is just really cool to me. This is so far up my alley. It couldn't have been more perfect for me. And I love these cables coming in and snaking around with the shadow. Like, I love it. I love it. Now, each of these are hot linked, which is pretty cool. And the program that I'm using, Skim, lets you preview what it is that you're mousing over. So if you're wondering what that is, that's what's going on. Then you can see that the first part is the setting. The kind of second part is how you're going to do stuff. And then this part is a sample adventure to get you going, along with some handouts. And we'll touch on that in just a little bit, and some pre-made characters. So it's all here, and it's super straightforward to get going. So let's look at it. Basically, it says exactly what I just explained, that the saga machine is the main resolution mechanic. How are you going to decide whether you succeed or fail? And then um, this is the future that's 300 years in the future. And it's kind of like, yeah, it's already the future we live in today, just in space, because it's highly networked, and most folks prefer to connect through the network instead of in person. And due to that network, culture has split, and there is no unified message or myth. Everybody gets to be in their own echo chamber, like that sounds familiar. A lot of folks are transient, just passing through. Nation states aren't really a thing anymore. It's syndicates, corporations, conglomerates. Yep, that's that's pretty much how things are already too. The rise of the corporations, crime and punishment, and everything is about money, which is kind of funny because, I mean, without money, we'd all just be digging around in the dirt. But also in Traveler, uh, they're saying, well, economics basically sets the limits on everything. So everything has to be economically viable. Otherwise, it doesn't really exist. So that's here. But it talks about how not a lot of cultures have tried to spin up their own tokens or assets and that kind of thing. And most money isn't physical anymore, it's all digital. So, again, it's kind of like today with a 300-year skin over it, or 300-year in the future skin put over it. So, yeah, that makes sense. Shiny new toys. There are some cool toys to play with, and that's kind of explained in the rules. And then the final word is that um, it's starting to get into the narrative of the game you're playing. So it's kind of like, hey, they're coming for you. I don't have a lot of time to explain everything, but you know enough that you need to know. Which so that's kind of going from the author writing to the reader, you, and now it's more like an in character speaking to your character. Okay, cool, that begins. So it's kind of a neat tonal shift to the guide. And then here it's the basics of how it works, which is that you've got some stats, which are strength, dex, speed, endurance, intelligence, perception, charisma, and determination. So instead of the core six, there's an extra charisma and determination, which factors in because this is a horror game. So you're going to be seeing some stuff that brings your sanity into question. And it's more like your determination to make it through. So you've got quite a number of stats here. And then you've got a skill list. And I like a smaller, more kind of principle oriented or category oriented bucket that all the smaller skills could fit into. I like having a tight list rather than having a skill for clipping your nails and any of that kind of stuff. So these are the skills here, and the ones with an asterisk are kind of like, listen, if you haven't been trained in it at all, don't even try. That's it. But what's neat is that it's a stat plus skill element here. And the basic idea, so all the skills are explained here, and some of the extra things that matter that aren't a skill, aren't a stat, which is your armor, your defense value, edge, which we'll talk about that in just a minute, health and willpower. Willpower being your ability to resist the horrors, right? So determination kind of fits in there. But when you've got to roll, when you've got to test whether or not you succeed or fail, you are going to roll 1d10 and add your stat and your skill to it. And if you make it over the target number, then you're successful. Plus, um, like if you are in combat, I don't know exactly where this is. Yeah. So in combat, like if you succeed and you succeed by 3 over the target number, you do the base damage of your weapon plus how much extra you did gets added on. So if your weapon does 5 damage and you succeeded with 3 over the target number, the damage you apply is 8, which is kind of cool. So here are the target numbers for a D10, which now trivial is 6, which makes sense because if your stat is 4 and you've got 1 rank of skill in something, okay, that's 5, and 6 is the number you're trying to meet or beat, okay, yeah, you've got a 10% chance of failure that's almost certainly guaranteed, that kind of thing. 20 is almost impossible. And um, the this is this is one element that I was kind of confused by, because here it's saying after resolving a critical failure, gain edge until you have a number equal to your edge score. If you already had that number or greater, instead gain a single edge. I have no clue what in the world that means, and they don't reference the page that it's on, but they're talking about stress, page 28, and everything else right down here suffers an automatic mental break, page 29. Everything else is referenced by the page number except edge, which is kind of weird. So I was a little bit confused about that. And then you've got to roll or scroll down to the next one to see it and like, oh, okay, that's what they're talking about. Then boons and banes is kind of like rolling with advantage or disadvantage, but every advantage gives you one extra d10 to roll with. So in a way, it's kind of like a dice pool, but you're going with just the highest one, not not adding them together, except if you get doubles or you get pairs, if multiple dice are rolled due to boons, like the advantage, and have matching values, you can choose to add the values of two of the matching dice together, and that's called a pair. So the impossible would be if you're rolling and you've got a stat and a skill, and you happen to roll two d10s because you had an advantage or a boon, and you happen to roll 10s on both of those dice, you could add the 10s together, then that would be your 20, plus your skill, plus your stat would put you over that 20. So it's functionally impossible, but not 0% chance. It's just a very low percent chance of doing a 20 difficult target number kind of thing. So that's kind of cool. Now, edge, okay, this is where it's explained, which is basically kind of like a hero point or whatever. It's a meta currency, some resource that you can use to affect your rolls or whatever. So you can use it to reduce stress, because if you get too much stress and you fail that check, you go bonkers. So you can trade an edge to reduce stress by one and that kind of thing. You can push your luck by willingly taking on a stress, but the bummer is that, again, if you roll and your stress die is under your stress value, then you go bonkers. I think that's what it is. Pushing your luck, reducing stress. So yeah, it's kind of weird. Like we're talking about reducing something that we haven't talked about. Um, so stress is way down here, past all of these. Now stress and panic is here. Um, so stress boons work exactly like normal boons, except that the die from the stress boon is equal to or less than your character's current stress value. They panic. So you keep track of that by making sure it's a different color die. So you've got your standard D10, then you've got your boon dice. Those don't have to be a different color because you're just going to take the highest one. But your stress needs to be a different color because you're always testing its value to your stress level. And if it's equal to or lower than, then you panic and you've got to make a test on that. So I would have liked to see this a little bit earlier so that I know reducing stress, I understand what that means, but I have to hold it in my brain as a piece before I kind of close that loop and then go, oh, okay, then I got to come back. So that's just kind of an information thing, but at least it's shown here, page 28. Oh, okay, I can go see what that is, and then come back. And then the consequences, like from stress or wounds and that kind of thing. What happens, how long does it happen, and what happens when they happen together. So you can have a bleeding consequence, dazed consequence, disabled. So this is kind of like a status, but it's called a consequence. But it helped me to think of it as a status. You can be fatigued, you can have a grave wound, you can be hidden, so you can have the status, but it's like hidden consequence, which was confusing to me. I'm like, so this consequence is hidden from view? No, being hidden is a consequence. What? So that was just a little confusing to my smooth brain. But stress panic, so it's equal to or less than the stress value. And again, you can reduce stress by cashing in one of your edge tokens. Um, then down here, when you go bonkers, you can roll on this chart to see what happens. Now, in combat, pretty simple. It's in rounds, and you can do a fast turn, an NPC turn, and then a slow turn. And I was kind of confused by this because there's no mechanical advantage or disadvantage or edge or consequence to taking a fast turn or a slow turn. So a slow turn just is more of seeing what everybody else is doing and then deciding what to do. But it's not like doing a fast turn. You've got to plus something to initiative and attack, but you can only do 2 actions instead of 3. There's nothing like that. It's more like who wants to go first. So I emailed these guys and they were like, yeah, 75% of the time, everybody just takes a fast turn. They want to act first. Every once in a while, well, let me just see what the NPCs do and then I'll do my thing. So I was expecting a little bit more in terms of mechanical moving pieces to deciding one or the other, but kind of like a give and take to each one. But there's not. It's just like, do you want to go before the NPCs or after? And that's it. Um, then attacks from concealment and defense. So that's kind of it, right? So you can focus to get a little bit better chances of making an attack. Then health and wounds. I was also confused by this a little bit because it's like your wound total needs to be under the number of health points that you've got, or else you start dying. Okay, cool. And then here, first aid, healing and healing damage. This says it can be used to patch up damage shortly after it happens, pick a wound or a grave wound consequence, and make a medicine test. On success, the patient may reduce its value. So I was like, oh, okay. So are you keeping track of the wounds individually, or are you just adding them up to the total? And then they said, no, you're keeping track of each wound separately and its total to make sure it's under your health value, so that when you do first aid, you can do first aid on a grave wound. And if successful, you reduce that grave wound by 1. Then you can do for first aid on a normal wound, and then you reduce it by the margin. So if it's a difficulty 10 and you rolled 15, you just healed 5 of that wound. Okay, cool. So you can do first aid for each of those wounds, which gives you more opportunities to reduce the total so that you're going to stay in the game a little bit longer, but you can rack up wounds pretty easily and then spiral out super fast. So it's kind of a cool way to balance that out, which I like. Um, then here, all attacks list a damage value. When a hit is scored, they deal the indicated amount of damage plus the attack's margin of success. So again, oh, so here it is. So pistol does 5 damage. He rolled over by 3, so that's 8 points of damage. So that's where that is. Then you are into the memories, which is the preset um, synopsis, the run through, whatever you call that. The word's not coming to my brain. But it starts with the player characters begin with temporary memory loss caused by stasis sickness and have no knowledge of one another. And okay, you might call it a trope, but I love this because it keeps people from trying to know an encyclopedia's amount of information about their character in the world and all this stuff and be like, listen, you just wake up, no memory. Let's just go. And you're into it. So in a way, it's kind of like a Bronstein, whatever, where at this stage of the game, you've got alliances, you're working together, but then some memories are revealed, and then you realize that, oh, I'm actually part of this faction or this nation or this corporation that actively hates members of the other faction that this guy is, but has he realized it yet? So can I backstab them? So you're going to really want to have nailed down, is PvP authorized here, or are we all going to stay on the same page and be part of the get along gang? So that's what this is. So this is all in there. You're on the ship. Here's the deck plan and everything. And then each of the characters has handouts of what they're remembering. So this is the first memory, second memory, and third memory. So at each stage of the game of this playthrough, you're remembering a little bit more and more, gives you more context to understand what you're up against and whether you're all going to die before you get where you're going, or are you going to get where you're going and then things happen? Who knows? Play to find out. Right. So that's pretty cool. Now here's the one kind of weird element. I don't know if it's weird, but um, I I looked at my stats and like for YouTube, and something like 99.7% of you are dudes, right? Like almost nobody no ladies are watching this video right now. I know you're a dude watching this right now, right? And also, this is a very dude heavy hobby, and yes, it's changing and it's more inclusive and more welcoming to folks, but it's super distracting to me that the default pronoun used for all the examples um, are her, right? So not him, the he does this. It's all her. So this is one of those things that is so tiny that it doesn't really matter, but it's such a bizarre thing to do that it does matter. So either this is a big nothing burger and it'd be super easy to change it back to him and he, or this was done so intentionally that there's something behind why you wouldn't use he as the default go-to reference for the character you're talking about, right? But it's your character's dexterity is her fine motor coordination, flexibility, and balance. It helps determine her athletic ability, aim, and manual dexterity. So you probably don't care. I don't really care. It was more, I was confused about that it was all just her the whole way through. So take that as you will. Um, so I don't know. It was a big enough weird hiccup in my brain that I couldn't talk about this without talking about that. So that's the one kind of weird, okay thing. So I don't know if that's going to be in the main game or if it's just for the preview. I emailed to ask about that, and that was the one question that went unanswered. So I'm sure they just didn't see that in the email. But yeah, let's that's the view of the quick start that I wanted to show you. So closing thoughts right here. Oh yeah, I totally forgot to mention there are no hacking rules in the quick start, which is kind of one of my favorite skills to do. I love hacking. I love cyberpunk stuff. So I am fascinated to see kind of what those rules are and how they approach it to make sure that everybody has something to do while that's going on. So it's not some separate mini game that the hacker gets to play while everybody else checks Twitter. So that's cool. But yeah, I'm stoked about it. I'm gonna back it, and I'm really excited to see this come alive. So go check it out. Let them know I sent you, and I will see you in the next video.